All right, I see we're 31 people. Hope other people got the message, or yeah, or it's just that you're busy with other things. Because yeah, now we're going to have regular classes, as I said before the break. So let's just dive in right away. So again, if you miss this class, for instance, don't worry, it's going to be on the web. Last class, I haven't put it on the web yet because I've realized that there were some students in the Zoom session for which we could see their faces, and so I would have to edit the video myself to hide them and then upload it. But my computer is at TSC, and I haven't had the occasion to go there because of all the COVID stuff. Plus, it's doing it remotely is difficult because a long class is it's extremely hard for me to edit that on my laptop because it takes a lot of memory. So if you want to see the equivalent right away, there is the class done with the other group that is perfectly fine, and it's done. It was on the same topic, so you can. It's already uploaded, so you can see that. Okay, so this class shouldn't be too involved, I think. So it's we're just going to finish this population, and then we are going to hopefully jump a bit into the finance. So the last part of the class. Now, well, a few words about the last chapters. I wanted to change the last chapter because the last model is an older model, and it has some flaws. So I thought, okay, let's try to have some more stuff about overlapping generation as we're going to start right after population. But yeah, I was optimistic I could do it, but I realized that it's quickly getting extremely complicated for you, and for you who are just discovering the topic. I think in a single week, there's no way you could appreciate all the material in in this time. So yeah, the finance part is a fun part to finish with anyways, and the model is not too complicated. So I'll explain it to you as well as possible, of course, and explain to you the good sides and the less good side about the model. And it's a good introduction to why we do modeling in modern macro the way we do. So it's going to become very clear to you. All right, so just to as a reminder, here we were last time. So we were talking about Malthus, and then we talked about the Malthusian world in which basically things are going slowly, and any tiny increase in technology is overwhelmed by an increase in population. So that's all well and good for the past, for Malthus' time, but not all that good for our time. So I shouldn't leave it at that. So let's just have some look at what happened since then, starting with world population. So this is, I'm showing here the best estimate we have about world population, but they're not easy to create. Yeah, a bunch of authors have tried them. I'm not going to plot anything before year zero because it's really too unclear. But since year zero, estimates are a bit better. Okay, so just to warm you up, to wake you up. So can somebody tell me if this world population is growing exponentially or not?
Yes.
How do you see that?
Because it's a logarithmic scale.
Yes, so it's a good element of answer. And then I'm asking that precisely because we have introduced this notion in the problem set. So how would the world population look if here we have a logarithmic axis? How should it look here? Population over time. Or if your answer is yes, then it means that it should look like this, right? So do I have another other suggestion? Or maybe everybody agrees? Or it's too hard in the morning? It's not too early. You could have class at 8 o'clock. But no, I'm kidding. I'm never going to give a class at 8 o'clock. It's just inhuman. Yeah, for me, I start being like awake at around 6 p.m. So now it's early for me. So no suggestion, or everybody agrees that this is exponential growth. Well, if you look at an exponential, it looks like this, but well, it's not exact. So it should look, because here it's logarithmic scale, but if we didn't have a logarithmic scale, we'd have 0, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So if this was a normal scale, then an exponential would look like it's 0, 0, 0, 0, and then go up extremely quickly, like it just emerges, but it's just because the scale is too small here. But now the person rightly said that, oh, we don't have a normal axis. We have here things are factors of 2, so we have 100, 200, 400, 800. And what does exponential growth means? Exponential growth, so it just means that you grow at a certain fraction per unit of time. So actually, I can maybe write this. So if I have exponential growth of say x, so I would have x t would be equal to x0, so the x that we start with, times 1 plus the growth rate, so we say r, for instance, and then exponent t. So that's what we mean by exponential growth. It means that the unit of time t is at the exponent. And what this means is at every period, we multiply the base population by a certain fraction, 1 plus r, so 103%, for instance. So what should it look like here? Does somebody have an idea?
A line?
Yes, well, this is a line too. So could you be more precise?
A linear function?
Yes, a linear function, exactly. So we should see a linear function. So in a sense, it's a good answer to see it's exponential from 0 to 1,000, but it's not because we know it was exponential. It's just that we have very few observations. So here it's just that my guess is I didn't have any data in between 0 and 1,000. So it's just the best the best guess for what happened in between. And then we see that it's slowing down here. And then here it's picking up. So so I know that people, when they say exponential, they just mean, oh, it's very large or very quick, but they're not precise. So that's the precise definition. The precise definition is it grows by a certain fraction every period. So it should look like this. And here we see that it's not the case at all. So you can see that from 0 to year 1000, it grew from roughly 200 million to 400 million. So it doubled. And then if we look at this period, so this looked to be a rough patch for humanity. There was the Mongol invasion and the Black Plague and everything. So it was a rough period. But then but still you can, if you compare, say, 1000 to year something like 1750, so you could say that it doubled again, but it took less time than here. So to be exponential, it would mean that the doubling is occurring at the same length of time. So here it took less time to double. And here we went from 800 million to 6 billion. And this was just in like from 1750 to 2000. So it was roughly a multiplication by 8. So it's way more than exponential. It's so when Malthus and when later on Borlaug, for instance, were scared about are we going to be able, is the world going to sustain the world population? That's what they had in mind. They had this crazy explosion of people, and they were saying, well, who knows? Maybe we've been more or less able to manage thus far, but maybe we're not going to be able to survive for much longer. I'm missing my. Okay. All right. So I've already shown this this graph before. So this is the world population after. So 1750 was here, and then you see this huge increase. But then this part here is a speculation about the future. So we know that the top growth rate was 2.1%, but we see that nowadays it's already slowing down. It's slowing down, especially because of the demographic transition that already occurred in industrialized countries. And this is the best estimate the UN has. However, it's just an estimate, and there are other estimates. So one team of demographers that are named Bricker and Ibbotson, they say that we're not going to cap at 10.9 billion in the year 2100. They say that it's possible that the population actually caps at between 8 and 9 billion about mid-century. So it means that we would not explode as population, but we would hit maximum in like 30 years maybe. So that seems extremely drastic as a change, but who knows? Maybe it's possible. Let me put this here. Yeah. So that's actually a total change from what we used to have. And yeah, the key thing to watch is urbanization. So let me show you their prediction. So this is a bunch of prediction of what's going to happen in the 21st century. So you see that, yes, so maybe population is going to go on to reach its maximum in 2100, but maybe it's going to overshoot 9 billion and go to, or even 10 billion and go to 13, or maybe it's going to actually go down. The question is, yeah, so the question is a question um, of what happens in the other countries, what happens in terms of demographic transition. But anything that happens here, what we have to realize is, so we had one chapter about standard of living, one chapter about so are we going to have climate change or not, and are we going to run out of food or not? So any any answer we give to these questions, one huge factor is this one, is how many people are on Earth. That's just the multiplier of the effect of humans. If humans have huge impact on the environment, but we are 1 million, then who cares? But really the problem is at nearly 8 now, we're having a huge impact, and at double, then it would be extremely tough. All right, so just to follow up, so I was talking about the demographic transition. So just to monitor a bit your preconceived ideas about the demographic transition. So which fraction of the world would you say has gone through the demographic transition? By the demographic transition, I mean going from a high birth rate, high death rate regime to a modern regime with low birth rate and low death rates. So so we know that the rich countries have already gone through that, but so what percentage of the whole world would you say have gone through it?
C'est sûr qu'on est cramé parce que si Théo a eu l'impression de t'avoir vu hier et qu'il voit ça, il va se dire ah mais en fait c'est
Florian, ton micro.
Attends.
And I would like to answer the question.
Maybe. Yeah, go ahead. It's better than the last.
maybe not to say the percentage-wise.
Yes.
But I know that China just reached their cap, so they're falling now.
Yeah.
Japan has already reached it a long time ago. Europe, North America, but the most populations, Latin America is still going strong. Most Africa is still going very strong, and some Middle Asian countries as well. But that's mostly it. Most population, the biggest part of the population is still to come.
Yeah, so that was that's a good answer for that, in the sense that that's exactly what the ideas I had when I started doing this part of the class. But it's our perception is always based on what we've learned so far in our lives, and so we don't know how fast things are changing, and we have to adjust to the new data we have, and this is the new data. So in my opinion, so we grew up with the conception that yes, we had so this is so okay. So just first of all, I'm going to explain what this is. So this is the old cumulated share of the world population. So this is everybody, this is nobody, and here all the countries are ordered in are ranked by the fertility rate. So here are countries with the highest fertility rate, and here are countries with the lowest fertility rate. So when I was young, or young student, so this was our conception of the world, and yet it was already an old conception of the world, because even when I was young, so China was already here. So you were perfectly right saying that China was had much decreased its fertility rate, and now latest data. This is the blue line is not even the latest data. So I have so we have a article in the Lancet that was published 2 years ago that updated these numbers. But yeah, basically, so China is here. So this is the whole world. And we imagine that, oh yes, so Europe and the Western world are right here and China must be here. Well, no, China is already there. So it has lower fertility rate than Brazil, Iran, USA, France. And why is that? Well, they had their one-child policy for so long that now the population is starting to get old. So and by the way, in recent years, the Communist Party had said, okay, so we had the one-child policy, but now it's over. So two children is better than one. So now they're changing from 1 to 2. Problem is the habits are hard to break. So yeah, so it's in China. It's over. They're never going to go back to more. And we kind of see here that India is a bit above replacement fertility. Or yeah, by the way, replacement fertility is in 2015 was 2.3. So replacement fertility depends on two things. So it depends on, well, so how many children should replace each woman. So if there was no deaths of women before the age that they could have their children, then it would be exactly 2. But so since we have some, so it's a function of death rates as well. But in 2015, so a function of death rates, so it was 2.3. So if every countries that are above 2.3 grows, and well, in so if you exclude immigration or immigration, and every country above would shrink. And we see that India, so this was in average of 2005, 2010, India was a bit above. Well, not anymore. So 2-3 years ago already, India was at 2.1. So at 2.1, they are here and they are below. So of course, that's for global average. So in India, I don't know what the death rate of, so the mortality rate of people are. So, but it's fair to assume it shouldn't be too far from 2.3. So yeah, India is already down there, and that means that roughly 80% of the world has gone through a demographic transition already. So that's why we see these things. So these things are a reflection of something, a reflection of the fact that almost every country now is going to not have above replacement births of children. Yeah. So that's a very interesting thing that's going on, and completely different from Malthus, of course. So in the like 3 years ago in the class, there was a unified framework of fertility rate combined with growth rates, like the Solow model and the Malthus model in just one big model. So yeah, I thought it's an interesting thing to think about, but again, the thing is, priorities of people are so different that trying to merge the Malthus's ideas with the modern things that makes people want to have many children or not many children is just so different that I prefer to just go ahead and show these trends. Because obviously it's people's idea, what people have in mind are completely different. So I'm going to show right away why this is. So here is the link between average income per average income in every country. So per capita. Yeah, income quintile. And then that's so that's on the horizontal axis, and on the y-axis is births per woman. And so does that look like what we seen, what we've just saw previously in the Malthus model or not? Try to remember.
In the Malthus model, the population is growing, but not the income per population. But in this graph, you can see that the less child there is per woman, more of the income is high. So this is not the case in the Malthus model.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's right there. So let me just rephrase it. So the assumption in the Malthus model was that if you're rich, then you're able to sustain more children, so the population grows faster. And then, yeah, and especially if you're rich, you don't stay rich because you just have more children automatically. And then there's just, so we had this positive link between how fertile the land is or how productive the land was, agriculture, on the horizontal axis, and how dense were the societies before. So I can just show it back quickly. Yeah, so we had this link previously, land productivity here and population density here. So more productive land, more people, more births, of course. And then what do we see? Well, the reverse. So here, more productive societies, fewer births per woman. So it's not exactly the same. It's not density, but that's it's linked. And so we see that yeah, the relation is completely reversed. So here we have if you your eyes are accurate, you're going to see that there are more than 200 dots. So it's not because there are more than 200 countries, it's because it's split by quintile. So for some countries, if we have more data. So bottom quintiles are in blue, and the richest quintile are in purple. And we see that basically within country, the same phenomenon is happening. So here are the bottom quintiles in the bottom countries. So you see that we have small blue dots. So sorry, it's very small. This is Malawi, Niger, Uganda. So so basically the poorest quintiles in the poorest countries are also the ones that have more children, and the richest quintiles, so the purple here, are at the bottom mostly. So the richest population part of the population within the countries also choose to have fewer children. Okay, so let's think as economists or maybe demographers. I don't know. So what's the theory behind this? So why is there this inverse relationship? Is one causing the other, or the other causing the?
Maybe if you earn more money, you will lose less children, so you will make less children because you know they will survive.
Okay, two things now. So you say if you have more money, you lose less children. So yes, that's probably right. And of course, so as you say, it's then it means that that you think you need less children. So I think what you have in the back of your mind is that children in the Malthus world, for instance, they are also something that you some reason that for you to think that when you're old, then you can have people who care for you. So it's a sort of it can be a substitute for what we have in the modern societies, such as pension systems and retirement and insurance in case you get hurt, for instance. So that's exactly right. Other suggestions?
Maybe the people who earn more money are also more educated, so they know more about contraception. So they can choose to be less fertile.
Yes, so I think, yeah, that covers very, very good. A good economist there. So yeah, here I have some bunch of answers. They're not exhaustive, but yeah. So what you said covered a bunch of them. So of course, population growth. So if so, we can distinguish between what causes what. So here, population growth. If you have high population growth, um, oh yeah, no, so, yeah, sorry. Let's go back a bit. So what's the impact of GDP per capita on population growth? Well, if you have higher GDP per capita, then it maybe you have money or better access to birth control, and then you reduce the desired number of children. So this is more of a sociological explanation, but still it's a perfectly, I think, good explanation, is that people say, oh, instead of having 10 children will work at any occupation, that I'm going to have one or two, but educate them very well, so to make sure they have a good life. So there's a trade-off between quantity and quality of children. Yeah, so in the Solus-1 model, we have seen that just when n is higher, then GDP per capita tends to be lower, because you have to equip the new people who come on the market. So this is a sort of dynamic explanation of why you would see this reverse relationship between n and GDP per capita. And then the other things that were rightfully suggested is so if yeah, there could be common links, common things that affect both population and GDP per capita. So education, so better GDP per capita means that you are richer, and education means that you're able to be more productive, but also that you know more about contraception and stuff. And institutions. So if you are, if the country has better institution, then maybe it's going to grow better. And also it's going to favor insurance markets. So again, people don't feel that they need to have many children to care for them if they get sick or they get old. So they can just have access to life insurance or yeah. Insurance for work accidents, for instance, and of course healthcare, that helps go better. So if you are a richer country, then you have more healthcare, and then you have yeah. So one thing too is so if you think in your head, okay, I want when I'm old to have, let's say, 5 children, but I don't know how many of them will survive for their during their infancy, then it might be more rational to have 8, and then anticipate that maybe a few of them don't make it to adulthood. But if you know, because you have a good healthcare system, that they all survive, then you know you don't have to have that many kids. So there is one overarching explanation, or it's not an explanation, but it's one word that would encompass most of it, and that is urbanization. So here it's again my 2 demographers, so Bricker and Ibbotson. In 2009, they wrote the book Empty Planet, The Shock of Global Population Decline. So I'm not sure about the word a shock, because a shock is something that happens unexpectedly and quickly, whereas well, you know, it's human population is going to grow at the pace it's growing, and it's going to take 100 years to get to basically where we are right now, maybe. So it's not as it would be a shock if we had like a doubling in the population in 10 years, then this would be a shock. But I would say it's a shock because of our perception that have to change. That yes, we're not going to go to a world where we have 20 billion people, where we really have to have in mind that the population of the future is going to be very different from the population of the past. And yeah, so their overarching explanation is urbanization. So they say that in cities, children become just another mouth to feed. Mothers have access to education. Women are less isolated, so they have access to other women. So if they are on the countryside and maybe they are just with their husband on the farm and they don't meet other people, but now they have access to other women easily in their neighborhood, and they can talk to them and share knowledge. Yeah, and also urbanization means that you change your way of thinking from a traditional way of thinking to a more modern way of thinking, and invariably that leads to wanting fewer children than your mother had. So they are talking about just one thing is so in Latin America they have telenovelas. So telenovelas is like soap operas, like yeah, téléroman. So it's most of the time for about the life of a rich family with cool people and not many children. And the thing is, so even if you're poor and you arrive at the city, but then you buy a TV and you watch the TV and you see these modern people that are rich and have fewer children, and you kind of idolize them and you want to imitate their way of being, and you don't think that a life with 8 children is a desirable outcome. And of course, so more contraception methods are available. The traditional power of religions, clans, and tribes is in the countryside declines. So in the countryside, you would say, okay, so you have so your duty to your religion or your clan is to have many children to be fertile. But then no, you become more individualistic in the cities. And perhaps a very good point too is that once the norm of having 1 or 2 children, or maybe 3 at most, is established, then it's virtually impossible to go back. So we can think of the French example. So in France, there are very, not aggressive, but very generous policies to incite women to have children by making their lives easy. So you can take a break if you have 1 child, and you even the father can have vacation as well. And the child allowances are very generous. So we would think that in France you could, so this kind of generosity should make women want to have many children, compared to say a country like the US, where they have very little in terms of vacation or help from the government if they have children. But no, so the fertility rate in France and the US are almost identical. So why don't French people want to have more, 4 or 5? Well, it's just that the norm is 1 or 2, and you're happy to receive money if you have some children. But for most people, it's not going to convince them to have 3, 4, or 5. Once the norm is 1 or 2, then it's something that's established. It's what people aspire to, and they don't go back to wanting big families. So just to probe your knowledge again. So of course this means that population is not going to grow fast in most places, but also maybe shrink. So do some of you have ideas where the population growth is going to be the slowest in the coming years?
I don't know. I don't know about the slowest, but I know that Japan is literally buying out. So might be there.
Yeah, good answer. So yes, Japan is one place to look for sure. And so I'm going to show them actually. Yeah, so this is what is going to happen. So this is again the Lancet report by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it's very recent data. So they show, yeah, it's population growth rates. So this is not future growth rate, it's actual growth rate, but it's omen of the future. So you see in the red where population growth rate in percentage are, yeah, in red, so population is declining. And in blue, the population is growing the fastest. So the previous answer, the class as to where the demographic transition is still not happened. So it was mostly right. So we see that the countries that are growing the fastest are African countries, so Middle Eastern countries, and some countries in Latin America. But still, it's not as growing that fast. So one of the last countries that is kind of growing in the Western world is, so Canada is growing a bit thanks to immigration. So yes, so this is not fertility rate, it's net growth. And what you have to think to imagine that this involves not only birth rate and death rates, but also migration. And there is going to be only this factor in the future. If everybody has kind of the same fertility rate around 2 or 1 point something children, so it means that what's going to differentiate countries? Well, Japan is here, Italy is there, so here they have, so of course they are going to be shrinking, but what's going to matter in the future for a country to grow or shrink in terms of population is not births and deaths, it's purely migration. So where are people leaving from and where are people going to? And so Japan, where is Japan? Japan is here. And so the thing about Japan is there's very little immigration. So it's very difficult to go live in Japan. And the fertility rate is super slow. So yes, so demographers think that by 2100, so in Japan you should have maybe if the country doesn't open up and the trends continue, then the population should be divided by 2. So that's crazy if you think that back in the 70s, 80s, people thought that Japan population would grow to heights that were unimaginable. Well, it grew extremely fast, but now it's completely slowed down. And so one thing that they say right now is that the market for children diapers, so diapers is les couches culottes pour enfants, is smaller than the market for adult diapers in Japan. So let that sink in. So des couches culottes pour adultes sont plus vendues que les couches culottes pour enfants au Japon. Yeah, so that's Japan. And you see here are the Balkans and Eastern European countries. So what's going on there? Why are these countries in the orange and red? It's not because so much as low fertility rate as depopulation. Life is difficult there, and especially young people, they say, oh, let's go study abroad, and then 80% of them stay abroad. So they say, for instance, oh, let's go study in France, and then, oh, well, I like it in France, I think I have a better future there compared to my own country. So we're rightly critical sometimes of the opportunities in France, but know that they are good. compared to other places, and especially in the Balkan countries, it's life is difficult for them in the countryside. So if they get an opportunity to immigrate, then they do, and they don't come back. So these countries are going through depopulation.
But Mr.
Yeah.
What makes Canada population growth high is the immigration or the fertility of immigrants?
Well, it's kind of linked, no? So it's, yes, immigration. So part of it is Canada is a good place to, it's very easy if you want to immigrate to Canada. And then, yes, immigrants for a while can have above average number of children, but that doesn't last. So yeah, so now it's really a debate about the evolution of fertility rate of immigrants. One of my previous colleagues was a specialist in that. But so what demographers find is that they adjust pretty fast. So that maybe the first generation that arrives have more children, but very quickly they adapt to. So I don't want to generalize. So it depends on which culture you come from, for instance. So maybe you keep your old values with you if you're from one culture or compared to others. I can't say for sure. One thing that's yeah, go ahead.
Just to say thanks.
Okay. One thing that's to note too is so China, which is not growing fast, and you see that some provinces in China are actually in decline. Why? Because there is this population, this policy by the government to stimulate growth in the coastal cities, and so in these regions, people are very poor, and they immigrate to cities. Yeah, so the cap at which most of the world population lives in cities right now was crossed a few years ago, I think 10 years ago, maybe something like that. And now, yeah, now more people live in cities compared to countryside. All right, and so one last question that I want to ask you. So which country is going to be the most populous in 2100? So obviously nobody knows, but based on current trends, do you have a guess? Or based on what I said about what matters for population growth in the future?
Nigeria.
Algeria?
Nigeria.
Nigeria. Okay, yes. So this is based on fertility.
More than 1 billion, I think it was.
Oh, wow, really? Okay, I didn't know that. So that's crazy.
I think India too.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think India, that is currently reaching same amount as China in terms of population.
Yes, but as you can see, so here they are about here. So yeah, they reach a high amount, but they're not going to grow more, or
Okay.
based on unexpected. It's true that now they're extremely populous, but we shouldn't expect it. Like China, they're kind of at their top right now. So any idea? Speculation. So I said what's going to matter a lot is if we accept that most countries are going to finish their demographic transition, what's going to matter a lot is net migration. And where do people usually want to go?
Which countries?
Yeah, which country?
Europe, North America.
Yeah, so, and even more than Europe, United States. Still, United States is a magnet for immigrants. And so, and thing is, so there is such a magnet for immigrants that now I think so the percentage of people who are not born in the country right now is as high as it was in the beginning of so 100 years ago, basically. It's really a country of immigrants. And so that creates tensions, obviously, with Trump and all these people who don't want immigrants. But if they do want to accept immigrants, it could be possible that the US would be the most populous country in, say, 100 years. That's a wild speculation because they have lots of catching up to do compared to India and China for sure. But that's where we're going. And also, of course, I talked previously, we're going into a world where we don't see lots of kids around, we see lots of people with gray hair. So population is not shrinking because just people are not dying and they're retiring. So we're going to have a society of old people in the future. All right, so I think I should stop here for about the population unless there are questions. Okay. So how much time do we have? So we start at 9:30. Yeah, we have some time to start. Yeah, so no model about this, just impression of what the world is right now and where the world is going in the future. And now we are going to have some model. Okay, so switching gears completely. So this is the whole topic for the end of the semester. So in a way, I think it's nice to just switch gears completely. That's so it's topics in macro. So if it was just about growth, then it would be growth in macro. So since it's topics in macro, so it's good to change topic completely. And now we're going to something that is has very little to, well, growth is always there, but in a way we're going to deal with another set of ideas. And yeah, so just it's of course an introduction for you, but it's very important to give you some things to think about before you go back to these questions in the next chapter of your studies of economics. So only one. So here it's chapter 4, overlapping generation models and money. So it's not a long chapter; it's only 30 slides. So it's only there's no subparts. It's just chapter 4, and then the longer chapter will be chapter 5 on hyperinflation. So just before starting, let me give you a story and to think about what's coming. So I don't know if you had to buy a lot of textbooks for your for your TSC work, but back when I was a student, we had so the professors would say, "Oh yeah, the textbook that you need for my class is this textbook," and back then it cost tons of money to buy them. So some of them would be like something like €100. And if you have 6 classes, then it would be €600. So you need a lot of money to buy all these textbooks. So maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. Maybe it was 50 euros. But if you're a poor student who live in a small apartment in Paris and you don't have a lot of money, so that's something that you're worried about. I don't want them to buy at least the new versions. So then what you would like to do is buy used versions of the textbooks. Of course, the problem is sometimes the textbook would change, or sometimes you don't know if you can sell it back the next year because the textbook might change. But still, so there was this market that was up, that allowed one generation of students to resell their textbook for the next generation of students. And did that work? Well, it kind of worked. So you would ask older students, can I buy your textbook? And then they would sell it to some fraction of the price. And what your idea was, okay, in the future, I'm going to be able to sell it back to the next generation of students. So then my question for you is this. So imagine that that you start the semester and your teacher says, okay, yeah, we're using the same textbook as last year, but I know I'm going to change my textbook in 2 years because the new edition is arriving and it's completely different and it's better. So my question is to you is, think about, should I buy the textbook for this year or not? So again, here's the question. So you can buy the textbook for this year right away, but you don't have a lot of money. And what you're telling yourself is, I'm not going to buy it if I know I can't resell it because it's too expensive for me. But if I can resell it in the future, then okay, it's a good deal. And then the teacher tells you, oh, in 3 years, I'm going to change the textbook completely and not reuse that one. So in 3 years. So think about, is it rational for you to buy it or not?
Is the book used just for 1 year or for 2 or 3 years?
It's for the next 3 years, it's always the same book.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, you know that most of your colleagues are poor like you, so they have the same the same calculation in mind.
But how do you do if you don't have the book to follow the class?
Oh well,
can you follow the class? Or?
Yeah, you can kind of follow the class, but it's not as good as if you had the book.
So it depends on the alumni preferences.
It depends on?
Yeah, on the student preferences. If he prefers rather follow the class without the books or buy the book.
Yes, but so I'm telling you his preferences. So what he has in, so he has two. So his choice set of choices is 2. So he buys the textbook and resells it, or he decides to not buy the textbook if he knows that he can't resell it. Okay, so his ordering is, if I know I can resell my textbook, then I prefer to buy it. If I know I can't resell it, then I prefer not to buy it.
I think everyone is going to buy.
Okay.
Because assuming that the condition of the book degrades, right? The price might go down by the first buy as every reason to buy it, because he can sell it, because he knows for sure that the next year they'll need the same book. The same thing goes for the second one. But the third one might have he might need the book for his year, but he knows he can't resell it. But then he has the option to either have a book, and if the book is a necessity, that book, which was in the beginning, has already degraded so much that it might be like worth less than half already. So he might buy it just for himself, and the price has already adjusted to that preference.
Okay, good. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Of course, old books are not as beautiful and as brand new books, but imagine that they are. So imagine that the price of used book is always the same. So I've got the right answer in the chat. So what's going to happen? Well, if you are rational, what so being rational means being forward-looking. So you have to think of about everything that's going to happen down the line. And so what you think is, okay, in 3 years, students are going to say, oh, that's the last year that the book is used. So I know that next year I'm going to not be able to sell it. So then I prefer to just follow the class without the book and have a lower grade. So I'm not going to buy the book. And then in 2 years, if they are forward-looking, then they're going to say, oh, well, I know that next year they don't want to buy my book because the class is going to change. So I'm not going to use it, to buy it either. And you backtrack to now, and then you think, oh, so I shouldn't buy the book right now either. So it's, if you're a teacher, that a very bad thing to say is, I'm not going to use the same book next year, and it's even a bad thing to say I'm not going to use the same book 3 years down the line, because as soon as you say that, then it changes everybody's anticipation about the future, and the resale value. So for the generation of 4 years so last year wants to sell the book right now, so they normally would get maybe 50 euro or 20 euros for a used book, but then the fact that the teacher said that means that instantly the resale value of the book, the market value of the book, which was perfectly good at 20 euros, goes down to 0. So just because of anticipation, even though the object itself didn't change, the fact, so you're right that if you use the book, there are marking in it, and it's not as nice as the previous year, but still you see that this anticipation creates a huge, has a huge importance for the price of an object, and that's a price that's above just the use value of something. So what we call this is a speculative asset, speculative price or speculative asset. A speculative asset is an asset that has a value not based on the stream of income that you get from it right now, or based on its utility for you right now. So can I follow the class? But simply based on what is your anticipation of the value you can have reselling it in the future. So that's why, yeah, so that happens to many things. And that happens, for instance, to cars. So sometimes you can think, oh, I want to use a car right now, and it's perfectly good car. But then what you have to keep in mind too is this car going to gain or lose value in the future? And this can have it has to do with many other factors that are not specific to that car, many contextual factors, but that is going to matter a lot for the resale price of the car right now. Yeah, so these are two things that we have to keep in mind, and this is what where we're going with money itself. So what's the link with the class? Well, the link with the class is the following: is Now what we have to ask ourselves is what is the value of money itself? And we're going to see that money is entirely a speculative asset. Why? Because you don't eat money. Money is just if it's money that you can have in your pockets, like a euro or anything, or even a more electronic form of money. Then it doesn't have any utility right now because you can't use it to in your garden to cultivate anything, or you can eat it. It's just based on the fact that that you know that, okay, maybe probably if I need something in the future, I can find somebody who's going to be willing to exchange it for me. But that's so that used to be a mystery for economists. Why do people think that? Well, it's not entirely a mystery, but in terms of modeling, it is a mystery because it is based on the trust that you have in the future that your money is still going to have value. But of course, it's based on intergenerational trust. So that's where this idea of overlapping generation models appear. And the question is, so if you have generations that live together, but that don't live at this for the same period of time, then how do you know they can have a contract? So if I go back to my story of the books, the problem with the books is I buy my book from the previous generation, and it's not with the hope that I can sell it back to the same previous generation. It's with the hope that I can sell it back to the future generation. So I cannot write a contract with the previous generation telling them, okay, I buy my book from you right now, but when I'm done with the class, I resell the book to you again. It's because this previous generation, they're gone, they're on the labor market, I can't interact with them again. All I can have is the trust that there's going to be a future generation that's going to want to buy my textbook. And the same thing happens with money in itself. So yeah, why? Because kids may want to support so their parents in old age, but so back in the days, in Malthus's time, then you would think, okay, why would if I'm old, how do I know that people are still going to want to help me or to give me something? Well, if they are my kids, so we just well, actually, that's a good segue for with the previous topic. So if they are my kids, of course, then they are going to. So if they are my kids, they don't want me to suffer when I'm old, so they happily care for me. But in the modern society, that's not necessarily the case. People can have no kids, and what they need is to have the faith that if they have some money in the bank, then people are going to accept that money in the future. So that's the whole logic of the pension system. So that's how we can have a transfer of wealth between generations. It's the old generation receives the good from the young generation, and the young generation are happy to produce goods for them and receive money in exchange, with the implicit contract in mind that when they are old, then they can use again this money that they have and resell it to the next young generation. But that was, of course, not always the case. So that's the whole idea of the pension system, especially pension that are pay as you go. So you pay for how the pension work is, you pay for so you contribute right now to pay for the old generation that has already contributed to the pension system, with the implicit contract in mind that when you are old, then the young future generation is going to want to pay for their own retirement and put money in the pot, so you can recuperate your investment at that time. So it's again a speculative asset. So there are many situations with speculative assets in mind. So Ponzi schemes are one, but they're not necessarily rational speculative assets. So Ponzi scheme is, maybe you've heard of that in the past. So do somebody know what a Ponzi scheme is, by the way, or? No, nobody has heard of Mr. Ponzi?
Yes.
Okay, so what is it?
Oh, yes. Okay, so it's someone that sold some goods or trade some value of money to people, promising them that he will give back to them the money, and then to reimburse these people, he just told other people that it would do the same thing, and this continuously. But in the end, he had no money except from the one he was borrowing from people to people and reimbursing them. But the thing is that he had to reimburse something bigger than what he was earning. So it created a huge hole in his pocket.
Yeah, that's very good. So exactly. So a good example of that was the organization of Bernie Madoff in the US. So he was promising extremely good returns. So he says, okay, that can go forever. I'm going to tell people, oh, if you invest in my fund, I promise you, I think it was, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was 20% or something, but crazy high returns. And then he knows, okay, so if I offer 22% returns to people, then people are always going to want to invest in my fund. So that's as simple as that. So then the first generation says, oh, sure, I want 20% returns. And then he doesn't have to pay them back. He just find other customers that are willing to give them their asset with the promise of 20% returns. But of course, it's impossible for his fund to generate 20% returns. But who cares? The next generation of investors pay him money so he can use it to reimburse the first generation. And this can go on and on and on until you run out of people who are willing to invest in your scheme. So for Bernie Madoff, it took some time, but eventually, at some point, he had trouble reimbursing people. And of course, another version is pyramid schemes. So pyramid schemes is, okay, if you sell this product, then you get some income, but especially if you find other people who are willing to enter the pyramid scheme, then they pay you a lot of money to have the right to enter the scheme, and then you get a lot of money from them. So the particularity of pyramid schemes is most of the money doesn't come from customers, it comes from sellers. So sellers, they have to pay a lot to have the right to sell, and so it's exactly the same dynamic. So any money is like that. So cryptocurrency is like that, or any asset bubble is like that. So you had so maybe tulips. Have you heard about this story about tulips in Holland?
The first speculative bubble?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that at some point there was some disease that made the tulip look weird, but it was some fungus that attacked the tulip bulb that made the tulip have some special shape or colors, and it became very popular. And at some point, people thought, oh, I should buy tulip bulbs, not because I want to plant them and have a nice garden, but because I know that other people want to buy tulip bulbs as well. And it became completely crazy until at some point people were like mortgaging their house to buy tulip bulbs. And then as soon as there's this slight doubt that maybe I'm not going to be able to resell that tulip bulb that I bought a crazy amount of money, then things go south. No, then in the investment banking, they say that music stops. So the thing is to be the last person to make money in the scheme until the music stops, and then the bubble crashes. So in my analogy with the textbook, you want to be the last generation to use the textbook, because before the teacher hints that he's not going to use the same textbook in the future, and then everybody wants to stop wanting to buy it. Yeah. So here the same thing with the value of money itself. The same thing with the pension system itself. Okay, so how much time do we have? We have 3 minutes left. Yeah, well, I can just show you one slide of what we're seeing, and then we can continue here next time. So this model is the simplest model you can have. It's a model that was developed conjointly by, or not conjointly, but so the two authors didn't know about the work of the other. So by Maurice Allais, a French economist in Économie et Intérêt, and Samuelson in 1958, an exact consumption loan model of interest with or without the social contrivance of money. So they developed the same set of ideas. So it happens sometimes in science. So we have some discrete time periods, t equals 0, 1, 2, 3, that are, say, 30 or 40 years. So if it's, and then people live 2 periods. So we see that they are either, so you have one period in which you're active, you work, and one period in which you don't work. And then this overlapping generation happens because you have 2 generations that overlap with each other. So one that is active and one that is inactive. And the thing is, only the active population right now is the one that is able to produce something. And they're going to sell part of their production as in returns for asset that they get from the old generation. And they do that because of the promise of being able to resell this asset to the next young generation when they are old. Yeah. So in this model, maybe if we set at 30 years, then it means that I can already retire, but no, I cannot already retire. So what time is it? Yeah, okay, so let's finish right away. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's no use to start with the model. You're not going to remember. So just think about these ideas of speculative assets, and then we continue here next time. All right, so thanks everybody.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.